Hello everyone, this is Lord Kernian here, and this is round 3 of the Nova Open tournament that took place in August in Arlington. And this one sees my High Elves drawn up against Dark Elves, which I was actually really excited about when I saw. That's always an absolutely unbelievably fun game, High Elves versus Dark Elves. So here's my list if you haven't seen it before. And here's my opponent. He has a Supreme Sorceress level 4 on Shadow, and this is his general. He's got a Master on Pegasus with Cloak of Twilight, a 1-up armor, and a Lance. Master BSB, who's rocking it out in the Executioners. He's a Death Hag on a Cauldron with the Ogre Blade. Then he's got 27 Executioners, which, as I said, his BSB is in this unit. He's got his Dark Shards, which his Supreme Sorceress is in that unit. He's got 5 Shades, 35 Witch Elves, which obviously the Death Hag on the Cauldron goes in there. He's got 2 units of 5 Dark Riders, 2 units of 5 Doomfire Warlocks, and 4 Repeater Bolt Throwers. So here's deployment going left to right for my opponent. He has his Dark Riders, his Warlocks. He's got a Bolt Thrower on the hill with his Master there next to that, another Bolt Thrower on the hill. He's got his Dark Shards, or Crossbowmen, if you played Warhammer before 8th edition. He's got his Witch Elves next to them with the Cauldron in there. Next to the Witch Elves, he's got his Executioners. Then he's got 2 Repeater Bolt Throwers, one's in the woods, and one's right there. Over here on the far flank, he has his Doomfire Warlocks there, right beyond the building, and he has his Dark Riders right beyond that. And then behind them is the Shades. I did a pretty good job spreading the board, not giving him really anywhere to put his scouts without him opening himself up to either an early game charge or an early game magic missile or shooting. So we decided to just pull him in the back, protect the points. So going left to right from me, I have my Silver Helms with my General and my VSB. I have Illyrian Reavers there behind the wall. That's after Vanguard. I have my Archers a little bit behind them. Then I have my Swordmasters there, my White Lions there. Then I have both Eagles behind them. Over here on the far flank, I have my other unit of Reavers and my unit of Archers. So in terms of going into this game, what I was thinking, basically, I was happy with this flank. I had a lot of shooting. I had more shooting than he did. I thought I could do a pretty good job of at least delaying him, and when he gets around this corner, I'll at least have my bolt throwers to shoot at them. And I think between these units, I can probably hold up this flank, potentially get one of those units between the amount of shooting I have, and maybe if he opens himself up to a charge, I can get those points. In the middle, I want to avoid the Witch Elves like the plague. If they get into any of my units, they're going to absolutely chop them up. They keep their ASF, obviously. I'm only toughness 3, I don't have great armor in combat. They're going to absolutely tear through me if I engage them. So that's why both Eagles are here to redirect. My Archers are also there to redirect in a pinch if I need it late in the game. Say if he shoots out both my Eagles, I can always use those Archers there to redirect if necessary. I line up my White Lions against Executioners. I think that's a combat I can win. I think I should win it regardless of any combat buffs, but I have my Lore Master in there just in case to provide some combat buffs in the event that, hopefully I get that combat occurs in my turn, and I can get some combat buffs on it just to make it, insurance to make sure I win that combat. So I was lucky enough to win first turn. Not a lot of movement. I was pretty happy with the way I deployed. I kind of wanted to see what he was going to do with this. I didn't want to attempt that long charge. I just kind of shuffled up my my Silver Helms just a touch, not much. Shooting phase. So this was actually not the greatest of planned shooting phases on this side. I started off with my Bolt Thrower on the far edge, which, yeah, you can't see my Bolt Throwers on that side. Basically, I have 2 Bolt Throwers on the hill on the right, and I have 2 Bolt Throwers over here on the left. One's right up against the board edge. So the one that's right up against the board edge shot first, and it had clear sight to Doomfire Warlocks. So I started off shooting them. I was only able to get one of them. Then I realized, though, that the Warlocks actually get hard cover from that hill for the rest of my shooting, both from the Reavers and from the other Bolt Thrower. So I didn't want to shoot at them with the hard cover, so instead I switched my target, had my Reavers and my other Bolt Thrower shoot at the Dark Riders, and I was able to kill 3 of them. So not the greatest planned shooting phases. I didn't look ahead enough to see that, he has hard cover from that. If I was looking ahead a little bit more, I probably would have put everything at the Dark Riders and try to get rid of them. just so he can't redirect me and just get one of his units off the board. And maybe cause a panic test on his Dark Riders if I'm lucky. In the middle, nothing really happened, and so we go to Dark Elf turn 1. So he just kind of pushed his main infantry blocks forward, and that's really all that happened. Over here on this side, his Doomfire Warlocks on the far right just kind of moved around the building and lined up a charge against my Bolt Throwers. And then his Dark Riders moved up really aggressively, which I thought this was a mistake on his part. He moved them right up in the teeth of my guys. I don't think he was expecting me to charge, but I mean, as you can see from this picture, it's a really easy charge for both my units, and I can get 2 of my units into him. So I think that was a mistake on his part. Over here on the far side, he moved his Doomfire Warlocks across the hill, put them right there, lined up against my Silver Helms, which are just out of screen. I think this was also a mistake. He pretty much gave me a perfect flank charge with my Reavers. I think he was expecting me to dodge a little bit more, and he wasn't expecting me to do any charges early game, so I think this was another mistake. Over here, he did a pretty good move. He moved his 2 remaining Dark Riders, he moved up to Chaff, and he put his Master on Pegasus on the side. I'm really not that concerned of the Dark Pegasus in combat against my Silver Helms. My general should be able to smack him down pretty easily. He keeps his rerolls, sure, and he has a lance. He might get a couple wounds into me, but then I have a 4+ rerollable with my Prince, so I should survive the Master's attacks. My general has a pretty good chance of killing him in return. So I really wasn't that concerned with that, but he put them there just to line up in the flank. If I charge into the Dark Riders and decide to not overrun and reform, he can charge in with both his Doomfire Warlocks and his Pegasus. Guess maybe he can hope to do some wounds and maybe break me. So magic was pretty uneventful. I mean, he has Lure of Shadow, which early in the game isn't that useful. Lure of Shadow, because I'm an elf, so I really don't care about Pit. I don't think he kept Pit even. All I'm really worried about is Withering, which I was able to dispel, and there weren't that many dice in the magic phase, so I was able to stop his Doomfire Warlock spells as well. Then we go to shooting. Over here on this side was a little bit devastating. He has 2 Bolt Throwers lined up to shoot at my Silver Helms, and he was able to, between the 2 Bolt Throwers, hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s, -2 armor, which leaves me with a 4 of armor save. He did like 7 wounds, which is, not that much above average, but then I failed 6 out of 7 4-up armor saves, which is a little bit devastating for me. Suddenly that unit was basically dropped in half, which was a little bit, really weakening them up. Now they have to weather a bunch more turns of shooting from his Bolt Throwers, and I need to hope that they, survive long enough to, basically get rid of the Bolt Throwers. So that was a really successful first shooting phase for him. Over here, one of his Bolt Throwers, actually both of his Bolt Throwers were able to shoot at this eagle. We were able to get it off the board, which is pretty nice. And we go to High Elf turn 2. So, yeah, sorry, I didn't have a picture of me after the shooting phase with those Silver Helms, but pretend they're removed. This is the only picture I had of this. I charged into the Dark Riders that were blocking me. My idea is to overrun, hope I get off the board. I'm pretty close to the board edge, so I should be able to make it. And if I get off the board, then, save me from a turn of shooting, which the last turn of shooting was devastating. So that was my plan over here. And then, yeah, I took this charge on the flank. He lined up a perfect flank. I figure I have charge and flank. I have more attacks than he does. And, so I might kill one. Worst case scenario, he kills one and I only lose by 1. But I should win this combat by 2. He's testing on a 6. So that was a pretty good odds to get rid of that unit. Over here on the far right, I saw this and I was like, yeah, I'm taking this charge. I charged both those units into that. I'm outnumbering him. I have a lot more attacks. He gets rerolls to hit because he has hatred, but I should still win this combat pretty handily. And then over here, I didn't move my lineup. Instead, what I did is I hopped my mage out, which I did it last turn, and it was a bit of a mistake, but that's because I overlooked, chain lightning. Here he doesn't have anything like that. I'm within 3 inches, so I have the 4+ lookout, sir, and I'm also hard cover if he tries to shoot at me. He doesn't have any other real range damage aside from his Doomfire Warlocks on that side, but I'm kind of expecting them to charge into the Bolt Thrower, so I'm not really that worried about direct damage spells from that. My idea of hopping her out was I wanted to have more insurance to try to get rid of those Doomfire Warlocks before they charge my Bolt Throwers. So in the perfect world, they'll be gone by next turn, so I don't have to worry about any direct damage anyway. So yeah, there's that. So shooting phase, Magic phase was also pretty uneventful here. I had pretty low wins. Threw some of them at the bounce spell, he dispelled that. Threw more at the natural soul blight that I have on my level 2, and he just scrolled that. So I wasn't able to get any of either of my soul blights off on that unit, which is a little disappointing, but hey, at least I burned the scroll. Goes to the shooting phase, and yeah, I was able to do some damage. Both bolt throws opened up. I was only able to kill 3, which is, I think, a little bit below average, but he did pretty well with his ward saves here. So he was able to have 2 alive, which is a little concerning because that's enough to kill a bolt thrower, which is not something that I want. Over here on this side, yeah, they just went straight through the Dark Riders, and I overran off the board, which is good. I rolled high enough. I think I only needed like a 7 to get off the board, so it was pretty sure thing. And then over here, yeah, so I completely whiffed my attacks. I think I only killed 1. In return, he killed like 3 of my Reavers and 2 of my Archers. He was absolutely rolling like a fiend in this combat over here. Granted, he gets rerolls because of hatred, and he rerolls 1 to wounds, but still, he did a ridiculous amount of damage. So I actually lost combat. My Archers were steadfast, so they stuck, but my Illyrian Reavers failed and broke. Over here, we each did 1 wound, so I ended up winning by 2, and he stuck. So yeah, he kept us, so now that unit of Reavers is basically gone, but at least that unit's in combat. They can't, I don't have to worry about them advancing and threatening my bolt throwers. So Dark Elf's turn 2, yeah, he took the charge into the flank with his Dark Shards, so that unit's gone. Then his Warlocks on this side charged into my Mage that was behind my Silver Helms, and I just fled. It was an easy charge. I think he was expecting me to flee, so I fled. And he tried to redirect and he failed, so that was nice. So he couldn't redirect into my bolt thrower. They're just kind of sitting out there in no man's land. I have another turn of shooting at them with the bolt throwers, and I should be able to easily drop them. My Mage fled all the way through the Eagle. Eagle passed its panic test. Nice thing about facing Dark Elves when you're High Elves, you automatically basically have a table-wide BSB for purposes of panic, which is nice. So yeah, there's that. And then in the center, he just kind of pushed up. His Witch Elves kind of advanced full speed, so they have the Banner of Swiftness, so they went all the way up into my teeth. The Executioners are hanging back a little bit. They both advanced basically full steam. Don't know why I'm showing that. Okay, yeah, so after combat, magic and shooting were pretty uneventful. The bolt throwers on that hill tried to pick off my bolt throwers on this flank on the left, and he wasn't able to roll any wounds, or I think one of them missed completely and one of them failed to wound. So that was pretty nice. Combat, he just completely mopped up here. Oh yeah, and then he forgot to move this initially, so I didn't get a... So he asked if he could move it afterwards. He completely forgot about this guy, so I was like, yeah, sure, go ahead and move it. So he moved it over there near that wall, which is fine. He's kind of facing towards... He's at an angle where he can see both the bolt thrower and see my archers, so he can charge into either one of them his turn, depending upon, what happens in my turn. So High Elves turn 3. So I looked at this, and he was in a pretty easy charge. I think I only needed a 5 or a 6. So I took that with my White Lions, and I made it. Over here, yeah, I set up this. So I moved the Eagle up. I know I could have redirected and make him turn 90 degrees. This wasn't really that type of game. Both my opponent and I were just having an absolute blast during this. We were cracking jokes. I didn't really want to be gamey and make him turn 90 degrees. And I could get out of his sight, prevent him from getting the overrun into my Swordmasters, just by doing that. Like I just quick reformed with my Swordmasters and backed up, moved the Eagle up to block, and if he charges that, he'll overrun, and he'll overrun into my archers, and then have to overrun some more. So that'll take him completely out of the game if he takes that charge. So I set up that. Magic was a great phase. So it ended up being something like 7-4. So I had that really critical combat between the White Lions and the Executioners. So this was like a great time to get a decent magic phase. Up to now, the wins were really low, so it was nice to get a decent phase here. So I started off with 3 at Miasma, because I knew that was kind of one of the most devastating spells. I knew he'd have to dispel it. So I threw it at boosted. And so if I drop his weapon skill by 1, I'm hitting on 3s. If I drop his initiative by 1, I swing first. And if I'm lucky enough and I roll a 6 for the D3 or 5 or 6, then he's hitting me on 5s. So this was a must-stop spell. So he threw 3 to dispel it. Thanks to the book, I rolled pretty high. He had to use 3 to get rid of it. He got rid of it, but then now I had 4 dice advantage to 1. So I was able to cast 2 more spells, 2 dicing each. And with the book reroll, I was able to get off both of them. He couldn't stop either. So I got the life signature, which is regen on my White Lions, and I got Ice Shard Blizzard on his unit, so -1 to hit anyway. So I thought that was a really successful magic phase. Shooting was also pretty nice because my archers and 1 bolt thrower was able to shoot at his warlocks right there and drop them, so that was nice. And then my other bolt thrower, without really any other good target, was like, you know what? I'm gonna shoot 1 bolt at your Pegasus Rider. He had told me at the beginning of the game that it's like, oh man, I just can't pass 3+ ward saves. Like, well, you know you just jinxed yourself, right? You know I'm going to take the shot as soon as I get the opportunity to. So I took it here, and sure enough, he failed his 3-up ward save. I rolled D3 wounds, rolled a 6, and dropped the guy in 1 shot. So that was pretty nice. Over here, I opened up both bolt throwers on his unit, and I killed 1 of them. Which, yeah, these guys, he was rolling really well with his ward saves on these guys, passing vast majority of them. I did a bunch of wounds to them on this turn, but he was able to pass most of them, and only 1 died. And he passed his panic. Over here, yeah, combat happened, and I finally started rolling better. He killed another 1 of my guys, but I completely wiped the units. That was nice. Here I made a little bit of a mistake. I should have reformed them, combat reformed them to get them behind the building, so they're not out of sight of shooting, but I just didn't think of it at the time. So that's going to come back to bite me in a little bit. And yeah, this combat, so between the Ice Shard on him and the Earth Blood on me, it was a ridiculously one-sided combat. He was on Snake Eyes. Even with the BSB, he failed. BSB died, Banner died, but he was able to roll high enough to outrun me, so that was nice for him. So that's going to draw out my Lions for another turn. So we go to Dark Elf turn 3. So his 1 remaining Warlock charges my Mage, and I fled again. I had rallied in my turn, but I fled again here, and I rolled like Snake Eyes. So he didn't even try to redirect. He's like, I'm just going to take the points where I can get them. I don't think he was confident that his 1 Warlock could take on, 1 Bolt Thrower crew. It was much less of a sure thing. Just get the points where you can. So he overran. He kept the first charge, didn't redirect, and was able to get the charge into my Mage and kill her. See, there's that. He decided not to charge here with this. I think he saw that, if he charges into that Eagle, he's just going to be taken out of the game completely. He'll never get back into it. And, I think he wanted to try to get them into my Swordmasters, so he was going to see what he could do with shooting. And the execs failed to rally, but they ran really, really short distance. I think it was like a 3 or a 4. So now I have a really easy charge into them. With my lines, I should easily catch them, which was nice. We go to shooting phase, and one of his bolt throws on the hill is able to shoot at that and kill that. His shades and 1 bolt thrower could see these archers here, and he shot at them, killed a couple of them. And then over here, so 1 bolt thrower shot at the Eagle and got rid of it. So the other bolt thrower and the Dark Shards were able to shoot at my Silver Helms. And yeah, they killed 4 of them. So not as bad as the first turn, but once again, I just couldn't pass armor saves. Because of the quick reform on his Dark Shards, he was hitting on 6s. He got a couple wounds through, and I just failed a whole bunch of 3-up armor saves. And then same thing with the bolt thrower shot, did a couple wounds. And that was actually one where I actually rolled pretty average, but he still was able to, he did like 2 wounds, and I failed 1. So they're down to just my BSB, my General, and the unit champion. So High Elves turn 4. So yeah, I had that easy charge. I just took that charge there. It was an automatic charge. Going to try to pretty much clear his bolt thrower line. The Lions charged his Executioners. He fled, but I easily caught him and passed my leadership test to reform, so I faced like that. In the center, my archers just kind of wheeled and moved up in front to continue blocking his witches. Over here, I tried a quick reform and I failed, so they weren't allowed to move out of sight. I saw my oversight in his turn, and I tried to rectify it here with a quick reform to move out of sight, but I failed, so they were stuck out, and now they're open to another round of shooting. And then, yeah, this was terrible. So magic was not that high, so I started off with 3 dice fireball on his dark shards. I figure throw a fireball, kill a couple, maybe chip the unit down. I only had to kill a couple more because he had miscast once and killed a couple of his own units, and so I only need to kill a couple more to get half points for the unit. So I threw a fireball at that, and I threw double ones, and then I threw miscast 4, and I failed my test, and my mage went down the warp. So great. Fortunately, didn't kill many lions, but that's a big hit to lose my lore master. So now I have no magic left, which is really a really big hit. Yeah, there's that. So I was able to kill a couple of his dark shards with my spell, not many. And then here, so we go to shooting phase. So both bolt throwers now have a shot. There's only one guy left, and so I finally got rid of this guy. He's taken 36 bolts to this unit to finally kill it. So, and yeah, and here I killed his bolt thrower and overran. We didn't want to put them up there. They're in combat with the second bolt thrower, but we just didn't want to balance them. I didn't want to risk it falling. So we're just pretending that they're in combat. We know where they are. So Dark Elf turn 4, he once again didn't charge. So there wasn't much movement. He didn't have much left else on the board aside from his Dark Shards and his Executioners. So we go to Magic phase. It was 4-2, and he did the only spell that really made sense at the time by casting Occam's Mindrazor on his Bolt Thrower crew, which was actually hilarious. We actually went around and told everyone about this. It's like, he just cast Occam's on his Bolt Thrower crew. In reality, it was a really good play. I only have one model left in that unit of Silver Helms, preserving the remaining half the points for that unit. And he's a Dark Elf, so he rerolls to hit, and he rerolls 1s to wound. And so he's a pretty good chance of dropping this unit, so I thought it was a really good call. Shooting over here, his bolt throwers and his shades were able to drop the rest of my archers, so yeah, that stupid move of forgetting to combat reform after I wiped his Dark Riders ended up hurting me because it cost me the points for the unit. And then here in this combat, so yeah, we swing. His crew swing at my unit champion, able to kill him, but my prince and my BSB are able to kill his bolt thrower crew. So High Elf turn 5. So yeah, I didn't want to face more rounds of shooting from his bolt throwers on the other side, so I just moved them behind the hill, getting some cover, to prevent them from trying to solo bolt, making me distribute a solo bolt hit on one of my 2 guys. My shooting phase, I was just trying to get half points for this unit. I shot both bolt throwers at this unit, only killed 3. We go to Dark Elf turn 5. So yeah, he finally took the charge into my archers. Time had been called, or not completely called. They gave us pretty much told us don't start another turn at this point. So he doesn't have to worry about me charging him in the flank or something and getting some magic buffs off. Obviously, he doesn't have to worry about magic buffs because both my mages are dead. So he took the charge just to get some points with that unit. We go to shooting phase. Both of his bolt throwers open up here, and he had to kill, I think, 4 of them to get half points for that unit. It was like 4 or 5 he had to kill, and yeah, he was able to get it. So with the last bolt, I failed the last armor save. One more saved, I preserved the points for this unit, but as it was, nope, he gets half points. And then here, yeah, they wiped up the archers and overran, but it didn't matter. So at the end of it, it was an 81-point difference to the Dark Elves, which makes it an 11-9 here, because like I said, there's no ties. I broke him for +1 for me, -1 for him. And we both got a unit into the enemy deployment zone. I got my general and my BSB, and he got his Witch Elves. So at the end, it ended up being an 11-11, which, with the way the game played out, it's always nice to win, but this was as close to an even fought game as you can get. So I was pretty happy that it was I was pretty happy that it worked out to be an 11-11. I feel like that was a very evenly matched game, and if it ended up lopsided one way, I just would have a little bit of bitter taste. I felt like my mage jumping down the warp was pretty critical, because that was 300 points right there. Um, in terms of how the game went, I think my White Lions were the MVPs. They got a lot of points out of that unit by getting his BSB and his Executioners. And, just the big problem was my mage jumping down the hole. I did a good job avoiding his Witch Elves. I was able to trap them up all game, prevent them from seeing combat at all. They didn't see a single meaningful combat. They only killed my archers, which was nice. That was the goal at the beginning of the game. I cleared all his chaff, which was nice. The problem I had, I think, was I just didn't preserve points as well as I could have, both with the archers on the side, um, archers on the far right, and with my silver helms on the left. Although I'm not sure what I could have done there. There was nothing I could do to stop his Occams. Um, but yeah, that was this game. So I'm in here with a tie, sort of. It's a loss, but a tie, because of bonus objectives. And so yeah, if you have any, thank you for watching. If you have any comments or questions or things I could have done better, please post it in the comments. And thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.